So we're on worksheet B, number 10, part B. It says to calculate the lower and upper quartiles, then determine the interquartile range. How can we do that? We can go to week 5, page 1 and 2. Let's do that. So everyone should have week 5. Now, before we go to part B, let us revisit part A. As you can see, 5, 6, well, that's supposed to be 7, were deleted from part A. As you can see, they were deleted from part A and were transferred now to part C. The reason for that, let's take a look at the research questions and the hypotheses. As you can see, there are 2 research questions and 2 hypotheses. And I'm repeating that whole idea of research question and hypothesis because that is what gives rise to the use of statistics. Without a research question, without a hypothesis, there is no need for statistics. So we have to have that very much clear after we have graduated from this course. You cannot talk about statistics without a research question because statistics is like a tool, a technique, a methodology that you are going to use to extract information from data in order to verify a hypothesis, in order to answer a research question. Now, research question number 1 is asking about the mean of the variable height. What is the mean? What is the average mean of the population? Whereas research question number 2 now is asking about the average dispersion or difference between the heights. I need us to pause on that subtle difference, that very important difference. There are 2 different descriptive measures in play here. Research question number 1 is asking about the mean, the average. Research question number 2 is not asking about the average. It is asking about the difference between the heights. That's a different type of analysis. That's a different descriptive measure. So that's why I purposefully put those 2 different research questions there, because in worksheet A, we were talking about the mean. What is the average? What is the average? What is the average? But now we are moving on now to worksheet B. We are going to be introduced to new descriptive measures. And there's another one that deals with the differences between the heights, how different they are from each other. So that's the purpose for research question number 2. So hypothesis 1 is responding to research question number 1 about the mean. Hypothesis 2 is responding to research question number 2 about the average dispersion between the heights. Now, to do that now, part A required us to calculate the mean of the sample. So having obtained the mean, then we could go back to the hypothesis and compare, right? What the hypothesis said to what the data was saying. And we could have test hypothesis 1, isn't that so? And that was it. Now, part 5 here saying to translate hypothesis 2 to symbolic form, can you nullify the null hypothesis? Can we do that based on the analysis we have done already? So looking at part 6, it says, can you nullify the second claim? What is the second claim, or what is the second hypothesis claiming? It is claiming that the average dispersion. Now, when we look at the analysis that we have done, so far, we have only calculated the averages. We have not calculated, or we have not analyzed anything with regards to dispersion, isn't that so? So therefore, now, we are not in a position yet to go back to claim number 2. So this is why now I deleted those 3 questions and updated worksheet B. And if you notice now, they were placed now in part C. They were taken off from part A. As you can see, they were taken off from part A, and they were placed in part C, because part C now, we have not reached there yet, but part C says choose a method to determine the variance and standard deviation. That's another descriptive measure. The variance and standard deviation. That descriptive measure analyzes the dispersion of the variable. That's a different type of analysis. It's not an average. It's a measure of dispersion. So when we measure the dispersion of the variables, then we can go back to claim number 2 and see whether or not the claim, whatever is being claimed, is true or not. After we have done that, after we have calculated the variance and standard deviation. So in the next video, we're going to go back to part B to complete part B. So in the previous video, we were discussing why those 3 questions were transferred to part C. So now here we're going to discuss part B, how to calculate the lower and the upper quartiles and to determine the interquartile range. The quartiles are also descriptive measures. The interquartile range is also a descriptive measure, a number to describe the data set. And we came across it now in worksheet A. To calculate the upper quartiles and the lower quartile and the interquartile range, let's go to week 5. That's one option to learn how to do that. So here we are in week 5, and it says the measures of dispersion for raw data. One measure of dispersion is the range. The range is the highest value minus the lowest value. How different, how dispersed the values are from each other. So you have measures of central tendencies, that's the mean, median, and mode, and average. And you have measures of dispersion, how dispersed are the values. That's a different type of analysis. The simplest way of doing that is by finding the difference between the highest and the lowest value. Another measure of dispersion is the interquartile range. As you can see, measure of dispersion have a subtraction in it. When you're calculating the mean, you just add and divide by. There is no subtraction. But when you find in measure of dispersion, you have to subtract because you're finding the difference between values. That's what you're analyzing. Now, to calculate the interquartile range, we need the quartiles, agreed? We need the upper quartile and the lower quartile. And here you have the steps of how to do that. And you have that in video format also. And we have done that in worksheet A. Another opportunity, another source to calculate the quartiles and the interquartile range, you can go to TR6 E2WI. There are recordings there. We have dealt with that already. And also now, there are online calculators that can do that for you, because in the real world, when you're doing a research, you are not going to take a calculator and calculate the quartiles. That's not what you're going to do. Let's say you have a sample of 5,000. Are you going to sit down there and add up the 5,000 and calculate the interquartile range? No. There are calculators that do that for you. There are programs that do that for you. You have SPSS, you have JASP, you have R, you have Minitab, you have Excel. Okay, you have a whole bunch of others, and you have free online calculators. If you click on this one, there are many of them. You simply copy the data, you paste the data here, spaced by commas, colons, okay, semicolon, and or blank, and you tick what descriptive measure you want to calculate. The mode, the arithmetic mean, is a descriptive measure, a statistic. The mode is 1. The lower quartile is 1. The minimum value, the range, median, the third quartile or upper quartile, the maximum and interquartile range. All these are descriptive measures. All these are numbers to describe the data set so that you can go back to the hypothesis. So the calculation of the descriptive measures is not a problem in the real world. What is important now is the logical thinking of verifying the hypothesis. That's what is going to be matters. That's what's going to matter in the real world. So here you can simply, and if you use this app to calculate the quartiles and interquartile range, that's okay. The important thing is that you know how to use it and you know what it is for. So you can simply copy and paste the numbers here, the raw data, the raw values, and you can calculate your quartiles using that version also.